What's up, folks? David Soto Jr. here, and this is the David Soto Jr. podcast. What's up, folks? Welcome to episode 42 of the David Soto Jr. podcast. I am your host, David Soto Jr., and I have a special guest with me today. Maybe my new co-host, I'm not sure, but if you're watching on YouTube, you can kind of see him already. He's here in my ring sling, David Jackson Soto. And this is my beautiful son. And he arrived here this past Saturday, March 23rd at 03:40 a.m. And I have been enjoying his presence in my life for the past 5 days. And it's been wonderful. Even the sleepless nights that everybody says you're going to experience. But everything's great, and this is my new first day wearing this sling, wearing him in there. So far he loves it. I don't know if I have it on right, but he's very safe and secure in here and very content. And I'm holding him and working while Mama gets some sleep, because she is the sole provider for this fool's nourishment. So she's up all the time. So anything that I can do to allow Mama to sleep, I'm going to do it. And anything that will allow me my hands free so that I can write and work and record podcast, I'm going to do that too. So we'll see how this goes. Oh my gosh. So one thing I want to talk about, or the thing I want to talk about, is obviously the birth of my son. I haven't made a podcast in a couple weeks, and there's been some topics that I kind of want to cover, but this fool coming into my life just the other day, I have so much to talk about, and the story about how he came 2 weeks early. Somebody had bought everything else on our registry, a friend of mine from the Air Force, and everything that we had left on the registry he bought, and including a Munchkin diaper pail. I'm like, oh my god, we need that Munchkin diaper pail. We can't have the baby until that comes. And it was just a joke, and we're joking, and then my wife had do you guys know that I'm married too? I don't know. I haven't posted in a while. The person I always call you know who is now my wife. So you know who and I have been joking about the baby coming, and I'm like, and I talk to his belly and I say, stay in there, son, don't come out yet, daddy's not ready. And I was kind of scared, and I didn't want him to come so soon, and I enjoy the time alone with you know who, and currently not working a job, and so we're together all the time, and we have nothing to do but enjoy each other, and it's been kind of nice. So I enjoy the time we have together, and I enjoy it just being us, and also was kind of afraid for him to come. Typically, my routine is I used to walk here. I'm at my treadmill desk now. I used to walk every morning and get a lot of steps in, and it felt great for a while. But I've always had this issue with being able to concentrate at home when it comes to doing work and writing, and I've always had to get up and go somewhere. So what I ended up doing was joining a gym, a Lifetime Fitness, which is literally a mile away. Just a couple minutes in the truck. And granted, I'm not a gym guy. I don't I'm anti-gym. I've written articles about it, but this gym does everything they can to not be a typical gym. Yes, it's a big giant franchise, and yes, it costs a lot of money to go, but they're not your typical meathead gym. For one thing, they have an incredible, peaceful, quiet yoga studio so far away. There's no glass. A lot of times gyms used the same group fitness or group exercise rooms for their yoga, and it's essentially you're trying to be peaceful and stretch and relax while while people are looking in the glass and can see you. You can't dim the lights, and you can try to dim the lights, but there's still all the other light from the rest of the gym coming in. So they have a great yoga studio, multiple pools inside, well, not to mention the pools outside, and gym, rock climbing wall, etc., etc. So, well, and the thing that really got me was they have a cafe with internet and Wi-Fi, and so I talked to who, and we brought it up a couple times with our couples counselor, and then I brought it up with my doctor at the VA, that it's really something that I should probably be doing, is going to the gym and going out and getting that time in to write and work on my projects and etc. So I joined the gym, and I go every morning. And the reason I told you all that is because Friday morning, while I'm at doing my routine, they're getting to the point where they know me there now, and I'm at a stand-up table and I'm working on something. My phone rings, and it's who, and it's never who, because she doesn't call me. The most I get, I work together so much that the most I get from her are text messages, and those are rare because again, we spend so much time together. So when my phone was ringing and it had this beautiful picture of who that I took last year, I knew that something was up. And I pick up the phone and I say hello, and she says, "Babe, my water just broke." And I didn't even know what to think. Of course, my goofy ass made a joke and says, "Okay, well, I'm almost done here, and then I'm going to get my workout, and then I'll be over, and I'll be home." And she laughed, and we laughed, and then I said, "Okay, I'll be right there." So I packed up all my stuff, my computer and my coffee and my water, and I looked around. And this is the weird thing. It's like I'm getting the best news of my life right now. My son is coming, and I'm looking around, and I want to tell somebody, and there was nobody there to tell. I didn't even see Ozzie Smith, and I see Ozzie Smith there quite a bit. If I saw him at that time, I would have said, "Hey, Ozzie Smith, guess what? My son is coming." But I didn't see anybody that I know. I don't really know anybody out here, considering I just moved. And so it was kind of frustrating that I didn't have anybody to talk to or to tell, like, "Hey, my wife's water just broke. My son, I'm going to the hospital. We're taking her to the hospital right now." It was kind of like, oh my gosh. And I just became overwhelmed, and I was so happy, and I wanted to share it with somebody. The last time I felt like this was when I finished writing my last book up in my buddy's cabin, and I was done, and there was no internet, no nothing. I had nobody to tell. And so I just got my phone out and made a recording. And that's what I realized I needed to do. But I didn't realize it till I was back in the truck and on the way back home. So the whole time I'm getting emotional, and I'm overwhelmed with joy, and it's taking over, and I'm like, oh my God, I gotta stop the truck. I just gotta hurry up and get home, and I have to vent. People think venting is necessary for grief or anger, but man, it really, I really needed to vent joy. I needed to express myself. And so I got my camera out, and right then and there I decided that I was going to make a journal for my son. Basically everything I make is for my son, for him to look back and see what his dad has done over the past, or over his lifetime, even before he was around, before he was even a thought. But I pulled up into the house, and I got the phone out while still in the truck, and I made a recording, and I just lost it. I was in tears. I was choking. I couldn't even get the words out. The first thing I said is, "Mommy's water just broke, son." And at that point, when I got that news, nothing mattered. Nothing else mattered. Our financial issues, which we don't have really financial issues, but we're living off of savings and investments, and I'm looking for work, and I would like to have a job and provide an income. Also, I would like to not work. So I'm having issues with that. But things are going well. I'm having some job interviews. I've had offers. Things are going pretty good. I just got to be patient. But, the whole being unemployed thing, the whole in being overweight, dealing with my weight, trying to work on getting rid of these extra pounds that I gained since the pregnancy, since who's pregnancy. Any problems, like quarrels or issues that who and I may or may not even have about the future, or how are we going to do this, or it's just nothing mattered anymore at that point. Like everything that I worried or was concerned about just did not have any impact on my life. My son was coming. Fast forward to a couple hours later, we're in a hospital. She gets checked in. She's got all these wires. She's got an IV connected, and the nurse is kind of, I don't blame her, but the nurse was not like the most pleasant and happiest of persons. I can sense that, who was not too pleased with her, and I was not too pleased with her. But what happened was they called in another nurse, and from her day off, and she came in, and she was pleasant and so helpful and so great. And she started taking care of us. This fool's gonna interrupt my broadcast. It's okay, son. You can interrupt my broadcast. So once everything got hooked up and they made a call to the doctor, and of course she was 2 weeks early, the doctor put her on Pitocin, if I get that right, Pitocin, to help move along the contractions and get things going. And once she got on the Pitocin and got set up, she laid back down, everything was cool. I said, the doctor came in. The doctor came in, he checked her cervix, and she was not very far along, and he ended up saying, like, this could be a long night. This is going to be a long night. And he jokingly said 7 a.m. tomorrow. Now, granted, it is, by this time, it's around noon. He's at 7 a.m. tomorrow, and we looked at each other like, no way. He's like, ha, just kidding. Probably 3 a.m. Like, that's not better. Like, that's not an improvement. It's still more than 12 hours away, Holmes. So to joke and say it's 7, and then it actually think it's going to be 3 a.m. Not an improvement. Like 7 a.m. tomorrow. Ha. Just kidding. It'll be in a couple hours. Like, that makes sense. Like, that's like, oh, you got me. 7 a.m. No, just kidding. It'll be 3 a.m. Like, there's no joke. Like, it's just as bad. So with the news of a long night coming, I decided, like, I'm going to go get something to eat. I need some energy to endure this long wait that we're going to have. And she was okay with it, and she said, go ahead, go. And she was now on a clear liquid diet, or a clear food diet, so she couldn't eat anything. So my intent was to go eat and then come back, and then that way I'm not eating anything in front of her, and she doesn't get tempted or anything to eat anything that she's not supposed to. So I went to Panera, is what everybody else calls it in the world, or in the United States, of course. Here in St. Louis, we call it St. Louis Bread Company, because that's where it started, and that was the name of it originally. Went to St. Louis Bread Company, and right as I pull up, I get a text message. She says, go through the drive-thru and come back quickly. And I was like, oh my God, what's happening? And she says, contractions are coming, and they hurt so bad. She says, I already called my mom, and she's coming. So I'm like, is baby coming sooner than we thought? And so I ordered my stuff, ate it as I drove back to the hospital. Again, I didn't want to eat in front of her. And when I got there, she was in so much pain. Those contractions were hurting her. At first, she had contractions and didn't even know she was having contractions. The only way anybody knew was by the readout on the machine, on the monitor. But the contractions were coming, and she was in pain. and she wanted to get on the yoga ball or the pregnancy ball or labor ball, whatever the hell they call it, the exercise ball. And I helped her get on that to help, and had to put a thing down on the ball so it could absorb. Like, there's a lot of bodily fluids coming out, and she's on that, hooked on IVs, hooked on a monitor, and sitting, and the contractions come, and she's in pain, and the tears are coming, and now I don't like seeing her. I didn't like seeing her in pain. I didn't like it, and I felt horrible. The nurse come in, how are you doing? And eventually, through every other nurse that came in there, female nurse, I just said, get the epidural. Just do it. You can get it whenever you want. You don't have to wait. You're not being a hero by tolerating this pain. Just go ahead and get it. And so she agreed. And the anesthesiologist came in and gave her the epidural, and she started to feel better. Eventually, she had no more painful contractions, and she was just chilling in bed. And of course, of all the things that are hooked up to her, the heart rate or the blood pressure cuff is hooked up to her, and it occasionally takes her blood pressure. And then we were warned that her blood pressure may drop after the epidural, and it did. And it caught the attention of the nurse, and she came in and she said, okay, I'm going to take your blood pressure again because it's kind of low, and we don't want it to get too far, drop too much lower than it is. She took her blood pressure again, and it was even lower. So she called the anesthesiologist back in so he could administer something into her IV to get her BP back up. While this is going on, a small team of nurses stormed into the room, and the little curtain was closed, and this woman just, like you do if you ever open a shower on somebody who was taking a shower just to scare the shit out of them, open it, you scared me, and then you laugh. And if you've ever done that, this is what this woman did, this nurse. And then her and another nurse came in, and they just started going to town, working on you know who. And I feel like I'm sitting there right next to her in a chair, and I'm thinking, this is odd, like, what's going on now? And then one of the nurses looked at me, and she says, oh, the baby's blood pressure dropped a little bit. And so what had actually happened was they got an alarm at the nursing station about the baby's blood pressure. Now, the original nurse came in about whose blood pressure, not blood pressure, the baby's heart rate. I'm sorry if I said blood pressure all those times. But they got an alarm for the baby's heart rate, which had been steadily at like 144. But they came in and they said, okay, we're going to turn you. And they worked together, and they turned her, and they watched the monitor, and the blood pressure or his heart rate didn't improve, and in fact even went down lower. And so they go, nope, flip her the other way, and the blood pressure, the heart rate did not improve, and this was beginning to be scary, because they're looking at each other, and you could tell that this is, I've never really been in too many emergency situations. I've been a first responder at one point or another, but I've never had to deal with something that was going on. But I can tell, I could see the concern in these nurses' face, and they're communicating to each other, and they're speaking, they're just looking visually, they're using a language that the layperson can understand. They're communicating with each other visually. They're trying not to let on to anything, but I can see the monitor, and I can see that my son's heart rate is way lower than it should be. And eventually they decide to call in the doctor. The doctor comes, the doctor's on his way. They got their little phones, and they come here right away, please. And they actually take the monitor that was on, whose belly that monitored his heart rate. They took that off, and they actually inserted one and attached it to his head somehow, and that gave a better heart rate of the baby. And I honestly thought they were going in for a C-section. They were going to take my son out of who, because his heart rate had dropped so low. And I just sat there watching and observing. When they flipped her one way, she couldn't see me, and then they flipped her back the other way, and she would look right at me, and the tears coming down her eye. And I just said, it's going to be okay. And by this time, I saw his heart rate slowly creeping back up. I go, his heart rate dropped. I go, it's coming back up. It's going to be okay. And obviously, it was okay. He responded to her low blood pressure. The anesthesiologist, whatever he administered, took effect. Her blood pressure increased. They got her in a position that he agreed with, on her left side, and his heart rate came back up and was steady. And there was a huge crisis and emergency, but it was all over with and done. And all the nurses returned, the doctor returned, and just left us our one nurse, and it was me and grandma in there, and everything was cool. And that was a little bit of a scare. But even though that took place, even though that got everybody's heart rate up and it got everybody worried, we still had hours and hours to go. So let me just fast forward. So that happened at maybe 2 p.m. So let me just fast forward to 12, 13 hours later. The doctor comes in, checks her dilation, and he's like, she's fully dilated. And he takes his gloves off. And he's like, all right, time to get to work. And he leaves. And I'm like, okay. And I was actually asleep when this happened. And so I'm up and ready to do whatever I have to do. The nurse shift had changed, so we had another nurse, and she was so nice, and she was very helpful. And she's like, okay, well, this is what we're gonna do. And we started pushing, and you could see my son's head. And you know who wanted to have a bald baby? And this fool. And I was like, I don't know, because Mexicans don't usually have bald babies. They sometimes come out with looks like full wigs on. And the nurse is like, oh my God, I can see so much hair. And who looked at me, he's like, oh no. I'm like, I told you, we're gonna have a hairy baby. And so I saw this look like a black tennis ball coming out, and I'm like, oh my God, he's so little. I cannot believe that. That's coming out, and he's gonna be so small. And oh my gosh. Well, fast forward to 30 minutes later, this fool's head comes out, and that little tennis ball was just the top. This cone head fool had a big ass head, and that was just a little ball of it. It wasn't his. It didn't represent the full circumference of his head. It represented his cone ass head. And he came out, and I was just so amazed that there's this gray baby that looks not cool at all. But the doctor was right there, and he used a little sucker, and he sucked out his nostrils and sucked out his throat, and he started breathing a little bit. And that doctor was pushing on her stomach, come on out, son. And he popped that sucker out. Once he got his head out, he told her not to push anymore. He like unwrapped the umbilical cord from around his neck, cleared out his nose and his throat, and then like pushed on her belly and pulled him out and pulled this sucker out and just like dropped him on her chest. Like, boom, there you go. It's yours now. Take care of him. And we had so many staff members there, nurses, and they started wiping him down. I guess, to stimulate him, I guess, and wiping him down and wiping off all this cheesy stuff that was on him. And I thought for sure I'd be like, oh, where's my son? Oh, crying. But I was just in shock. I was in so much shock. Just, like, oh my God, he's there. There's my son. I can't believe it. You hear that? That's my coffee pot. I gotta get off because that turns the coffee pot off. I gotta go turn it back on. But I was just so amazed to see my son, and I didn't really break down. And I took him over to the thing, and they were cleaning him up, and they're like, Dad, you can come over here. I cut the cord. Like, you can touch him, and I was afraid to, and somebody said, come take some pictures. So I got my camera and I took pictures of him. I grabbed his little hand. They weighed him and they gave him back to Mama for his first feeding, and I took some pictures. And the nurse had mentioned like the look on a father's face, like that's why she does it. Like her favorite part about being a whatever kind of nurse, labor nurse or whatever, is the look on a father's face. Like, I'm sure I had a great look when he just came out, but all of a sudden when he's there and he's nursing on his mom, and that's one of the first times that I lost it, and I just started like laughing, but with tears. Like, it was just an amazing feeling. But when I finally lost it, and I'll end this podcast, and I don't know how interested this podcast is, but when I finally lost it and just broke down and started crying, was I had brought my Beats pill, like to play music on. I thought maybe we'll listen to music. Well, we didn't even listen to music. We even had the TV on, but had it on mute the whole time. For like 12 hours, 13 hours, we just sat in silence for the most part. Which is something who does not like to do. He does not like silence. But I even offered, like, do you want to turn the TV on? And she was like, no. Or the sound on. But we didn't listen to music. But I knew that I had this thing in here, this Beats pill, and I was going to play something for my son when he came out, or maybe it was for me. But finally, I'm like, I got it out, and his mom was looking at me like, what the hell did you bring that for? I got it out and I hooked up my phone and I played Hermoso Cariño by Vicente Fernandez. And when that music started coming on, the nurse was still in there. And she was, hold on. She was like, ooh, this is some strange music. Yeah, she didn't really recognize it. And when the lyrics came and Vicente Fernandez started singing, and I lost it. I lost it. I have been waiting to play that song for longer than 9 months, for years. Ever since I knew that song existed, I wanted to play it someday because I could, because I had a son, because I had a beautiful son, and I do. And I am so grateful and so happy. My life has changed forever, and it's changed for the better. And what else matters? This baby boy right here is all that matters, and this is all my love. And him and his mother is everything to me. And this is just an incredible, incredible feeling. And I'm very, very happy. Folks, my name is David Soto Jr. This is David Jackson Soto. And you can find me on Twitter at David E. Soto Jr. And you can find me on Instagram, which, of course, you're going to see a lot of pictures of this baby boy on Instagram at David E. Soto Jr., JR for Jr. Check out my author page. I'll have links to my author page. I'm trying to sell some books. Do you see that I need to make a living because of this thing right here? I'll have a link to Amazon. I'll have a link to a Medium. I wrote an article, kind of goes along with this podcast. And I hope that you can check me out, reach out to me. And if you get a critique my sling ring here, or ring sling, or whatever this is my first time, okay? So if I'm doing it wrong, just be nice. But he loves it. He seems to love it in here. And any helpful parenting tips, dad tips. I do not need tips on dad jokes. Got them all. Do not need tips on dad bod. I have them all. I have that down already. But I'd appreciate any input. Some people are reaching out to me and giving me some hacks and best practices and et cetera, and I appreciate it all because this is my first time. All right, folks, I appreciate you tuning in. My name is David Soto. Thank you.